A lot of you guys are purely focused on the money, which is cool, but I'm here to let you know that a career in tech sales will not only change your bank account, it'll also change the way you speak, the way you think, and the way you interact with people on a daily basis. So in this video, guys, I'm gonna break down the top 5 life lessons that I have walked away with from being in tech sales for nearly a decade at this point. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Danilo Caprick here, aka still the best dressed man in tech. And what we're gonna do in this video is break down the top 5 life lessons that I have gathered in my software sales career after being in tech for about 9 years now. And the reason I'm making this video, guys, is so hopefully you can walk away with an idea of, should you decide to get into this career path, how would you expect your life to change, right? After any time we get a new job in our lives change a little bit, right? The way we think changes, the way we speak changes, the way we do things tends to change. So I want to give you guys a sense of what will change in your life if you decide to get into this field. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, guys, life lesson number 1 is less is more. Basically what I mean, guys, is stop talking so much. Straight up. Keep it concise, keep it brief, use the fewest amount of words possible when you are answering your questions, replying to things, etc. Whenever you are in any situation where you need to communicate, whether it's via email, verbally, written, text message, whatever, keep it brief. Less is more. And doing this has a couple of advantages. Number 1, believe it or not, the more you can keep it brief and specific and concise, you will be perceived as more intelligent. Number 2, because you are speaking concisely and getting to the point consistently, this will eventually become part of your brand, and people will start to look forward to when you have to speak. And they'll always wonder, I wonder what you have to say. Because you've created this reputation, you've created this consistent behavior where you are getting straight to the point, you're being specific, and you're making sure that all of your words count, because less is more. And the last thing to say about this, guys, is naturally you become a more interesting person, right? If somebody just blabs on about their life constantly, we don't want to hear it. We're actually getting sick and tired of it. We want them to stop talking, right? But if there's somebody who is kind of being more low-key and doesn't really say much even when we ask, we kind of have an inclination to ask them more. And we want to hear more about their life, more about their story, ask them more questions. So the more that we can keep it brief and concise, and remember that less is more, the more interesting we actually become as a human, and we have a higher potential and likelihood that other people want to engage with us more frequently. So that's life lesson number 1, guys. Keep it short, keep it brief, less is more. All right, guys, life lesson number 2, stop pitching. All right, stop pitching and stop trying to convince people. This is a huge mistake that I see a lot of young sellers make. And even when you're in social interactions and situations, a lot of people are trying to push ideas and convince others that their path is the best. Honestly, what that really does is gets you nowhere, and you ultimately get faced with more resistance because nobody likes being told what to do, right? People like to arrive at their own conclusions. So instead of pitching or trying to convince others that our idea is superior, what's a better thing to do is to actually just introduce thought-provoking ideas. For example, let's say you're in a relationship and you're trying to convince your significant other that you want to go to a certain restaurant. Instead of saying, hey, did you hear about this restaurant? Or can we go to this restaurant? Or what do you think about going to this restaurant? Paint a bigger picture for them to consider. And maybe the question is, hey, what do you think would happen if we went out to the nicest restaurant in town every single month, once a month? What do you think that would do to our relationship? And now you're really opening up their imagination to think about it. What would happen to our relationship if we did that, right? Same thing if we're in a sales conversation, guys. Imagine instead of pitching your product or service or your company, what if you just asked a very big question, an inspiring question about the topic in general, right? Let's say you sell a product for finance leaders. Imagine if you said, hey client, could you imagine if all of your employees would be able to do this, this, and this? How would life change for you, right? And get them to think about the outcome. Get them to think about that end state after your product is installed and all those things they'd be able to do with it. Notice how none of this mentions your product or service, right? Notice how in the relationship example, we never mention the restaurant we want to go to. We just paint the picture of what's possible, right? So instead of trying to pitch your ideas, convince others that you're superior, do this instead. Paint a picture of the bigger thing you want them to consider and ask a simple question that involves the stimulation of their imagination, all right? You'll find a lot more conversations to be beneficial, but also you'll end up leading people to the conclusion that you ultimately wanted in the first place, right? AKA going to that restaurant, getting them to consider your software, whatever it might be. So, life lesson number 2 again, stop pitching, stop convincing. Instead, get them to open up by asking a big picture question that involves their imagination around the topic that you care about. All right, guys, life lesson number 3, don't talk business all the time. Okay, what I mean by this is literally, even if you're going to go meet with the CEO and have lunch, it's a business lunch or whatever, don't talk about business 100% of the time, straight up. The first 80% of your conversation should probably be about personal stuff, personal matters. What's going on in your life? Who are they? What was their upbringing like? What are they up to these days outside of work, right? You want it to be really personal because guess what? When you're having a business lunch or you're meeting with somebody in person, a good part of that time, especially if they're meeting you for the first time, is they are trying to gauge your character, understand who you are as a person, and make the decision of whether or not they even want to do business with you in the first place. And guess what? If you go straight into business, they don't have that time to understand and process who you are. They don't have those data points to understand, is this someone I want to work with? So instead, what you need to do is focus on giving them that. Focus on allowing them to complete the picture that they have of you in their mind by telling them about your life, by showing them who you are, by giving them examples of who you've worked with, whatever it might be. But don't get into business right away, because if you do, you're likely going to turn off the other person, and what that's going to result in is them ghosting you and never wanting to hear from you again. So again, don't talk business 100% of the time. Maybe focus on the first 80% of your first meeting to be purely personal, and maybe for that last 20%, that's when you talk into business. I'm saying this, you guys, because in the last 9 years, this is how my best in-person meetings have gone. We've talked 80% personal, 20% business, and that last 20% was so impactful because we spent the first 80% just getting to know each other. Now, keep in mind also, I'm only talking about the first meeting. If you have an existing business relationship with someone and you've already had, all that personal exchange, then it's okay to get straight into business because they know you. But if you don't know someone and you're trying to evaluate whether or not you want to do business, that first conversation needs to be 80% personal exchange, 20% business, all right? So again, guys, life lesson number 3, don't talk 100% about business the first time you're meeting a prospect or client or anyone for that matter. All right, guys, life lesson number 4 has to deal with value. And in this lesson, what I want to share are the 3 things on this planet that have universal value to everybody, okay? Doesn't matter if this is a C-level executive, doesn't matter if it's your father, doesn't matter if it's somebody on the street, a butcher at a grocery store, whoever it is, these are 3 items that have universal value to anyone. And you want to understand these because, again, if you're prepping for a meeting, whether it's business or personal or a date, whatever it is, these 3 things will be of value to the other person that you can bring, okay? Number 1 of those 3 things is introductions. I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this can think back to your life and think about one person who made a huge difference on your upbringing or your career, whatever it might be. But think about that for a second. If you can bring someone an introduction that ends up changing their life or changing their business or impacting them in some kind of way, you automatically become super valuable in their eyes. Why? Because you were the catalyst for change. You were the person who brought that introduction. And let's be real, you have no idea when you make an introduction how that could change their career, how it might change their love life, how it might change their home life. You have no freaking clue. So whenever it's possible, whenever it's relevant, bring introductions, especially if people are in the same industry. Industry introductions are also a great thing, and again, universally valuable. Let's say you're going on a date with a yoga instructor. If you could introduce her to another yoga instructor, maybe that would be valuable. If you're at a CEO meeting, right? Let's say you're a CEO, and you want to introduce your CEO friend to another CEO, wouldn't that have some kind of value? Right? I think you can put 2 and 2 together here. But again, guys, introductions are universally valuable because you're creating possibility and you're creating possible outcomes that aren't there today. So again, it's in your best interest and in the people around you's best interest for you to bring introductions as a really good form of value, right? That's number 1. All right, guys, the second universal piece of value is new information. All right, everybody loves to sink their teeth into new information that they've never heard before. Why? Because according to psychology, when we experience something new, when we read something new, when we see something new, it stimulates the brain in a way that's never been stimulated before. And what that does is often produce dopamine, okay? So whenever we can, whether it's a business meeting, personal meeting, whatever it is, it's in our best interest to bring new information that can really entertain or inform the person that we're sharing it with. And what that's gonna do is give them a positive impression of us, but more importantly, it's gonna be of value to them because they're leaving the conversation 1% smarter, 1% more intelligent, 1% more informed than they were before. And again, they're gonna credit that to us because we brought the information. So that's the second thing, guys. Bring new information whenever you can, especially if it's for someone that you're meeting for the first time or it's a business meeting, whatever it might be. All right, guys, and the third and final thing that has universal value, believe it or not, is new ideas. Particularly if you're in business, revenue generating ideas, right? Everyone likes ideas that can make them more money. But in this fashion, guys, again, whether it's a business thing or a personal thing, bringing new ideas to the table, similar to new information, stimulates the brain in a way that it has not been stimulated before. And again, if you can do this consistently, you're going to be known as someone who's innovative, someone who's always bringing new ideas and creating more possibility for the other person. So again, whether they're business ideas, whether they're ideas about a vacation that maybe your group of friends wants to go on, you're going to continue to bring value if you can bring new ideas to the table. And if you don't bring ideas to the table, right, what are you bringing? You're either bringing problems or you're bringing nothing, or you're bringing something else that they've heard before, which is not really valuable. So again, bringing new ideas is a way to stimulate the mind in a way it hasn't been stimulated and associate that stimulation with you. That way you can create a positive brand, but more importantly, impact the other person with your ideas. All right, guys, life lesson number 5 from tech sales is focus on your client, not on your product and service. All right, I cannot explain this enough, but when it comes to tech sales or in real life, you need to take the spotlight off of you, okay? It is not about you, it's never about you. And if you focus on yourself, all you're gonna do is turn people off, all right? Especially in a sales scenario. So what the better thing is to do is to put the spotlight on other people, okay? Just place the attention on them. And the way you can do this is by being really curious and empathetic about their lives, their struggles, their challenges. What are they going through? And more importantly, how can you help them, right? So I like to play a little game now after, all this time in software sales. And the game is, how long can I go without talking about my stuff? And not only is this pretty entertaining, but if you do this, you will find that the other person will start to light up, because most of the time, you guys, nobody gives people that kind of attention. Nobody is giving people the time to tell them about their lives, to open up about things, to really just talk about them. So if we can put the spotlight on them that's not typically given, we put them in a unique position that not a lot of people put them in. And what that's gonna do is allow them to feel dopamine, they're gonna enjoy the conversation, and it's gonna increase the likelihood that they wanna speak with us again. So again, guys, what we wanna do is not talk about ourselves, not talk about our product or service, especially the first time meeting somebody. And instead what we wanna do is put the spotlight on them for as long as possible and as much as possible. And the things that we can ask them about are their lives, their challenges, their struggles, their ups and downs, what they're proud of, what they want to do next in their life, whatever it is, but keep the spotlight on them. If you put it back on yourself, all you're gonna do is turn off the other person, because guess what? Everybody's favorite topic is them. All right, guys, so there you have it, 5 life lessons from a career in tech sales. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and also got an idea of, aside from money, how could this type of a career impact your life in the long term, all right? So if you guys enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button below. Also, if you're not following me already, please do so on LinkedIn, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take it easy, man.